Shalom Mishpachim, welcome to His Narrow Bridge. Our time together today is meant to immerse ourselves in the Word of Yahweh. It is meant to be a personal time of connection to the Word for each of us. I will read each word as translated in English in an interlinear Hebrew Bible. These shows are pre-recorded, so I will be in chat when they air. Feel free to use the chat to post anything that comes to your mind as we read the word. We will begin with prayer, followed by time for each of us to say our own personal prayers. Our beloved friend Alan Horvath taught us, make Elohim number one on a list of one. We pray in the name of Elohim, which includes Yahweh, Yeshua, and the Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you, Elohim, for our lives and all you provide. We ask for a hedge of protection around our mishpacha as we pray and study. We love you dearly. We are your children. We come to you with questions as we seek our personal relationships with you. Please help us learn. If any darkness enters our time together, we ask you now to rebuke it. We will now listen to your word as we immerse ourselves in it and let it speak to us.
Acts chapter 6. And in those days, as the disciples increased, the Hellenistic disciples were arguing against the Hebrews that their widows were neglected during the daily distribution. And the 12 shlichim called the whole assembly of disciples, and they said to them, "It is not good that we should neglect the word of Elohim and serve tables. Examine therefore, my brothers, and pick 7 men among you that have witness, and who are full of the Spirit of Master Yahweh and wisdom, and we will set them over this issue." Footnote 62, idiom have witness means of good reputation. Verse 4, and we will be steadfast in prayer and in the ministering of the word. Footnote 63, see Divine Communication in Appendix. Verse 5, and this saying was pleasing before all the people, and they chose Astapanos, a man who was full of the faith and the Ruach HaKodesh, and Philippos, and Prachos, and Nicomar, and Timon, and Parmena, and Nicolaus, a proselyte Antiochene, that is, from Antioch. There stood before the shlichim, and after they prayed, they laid hands upon them. And the word of Elohim spread and increased the number of disciples in Yerushalayim greatly, and many people of the Yehudians were obedient to the faith. Footnote 64, see Josephus the Netzari in Appendix. Also note that throughout the diglot of Acts, I have opted for Yehudians rather than the generic the Jews in places where it is clear that the elite from Jerusalem is meant, as opposed to all Jewry throughout the world. In many cases, a distinction is made that Jews who live outside of the Yehudian area are joining with Mashiach and also serving Rav Shaul. Verse 8, now Astapanos was full of grace and power and would perform signs and wonders among the people. And men from the assembly, which is called the Libertines, and the Syrians and Alexandrians, and those from Cilicia and from Asia rose up and were disputing with Astapanos. And they were not able to stand against the wisdom and the spirit which spoke by him. Then they sent men and instructed them to say that we have heard him speak words of blasphemy against Moshe and against Elohim. And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes and came and stood against him and seized him and brought him into the midst of the assembly. Verse 13, and they set up false witnesses who said, this man does not cease to speak words contrary to Torah and against this set apart place. For we have heard him say that this Yeshua the Nazarene, he will destroy this place and will change the customs that Moshe delivered to you. Footnote 65, obviously an overly simplistic view. Torah enjoined that two priestly systems would alternate, one of Melchizedek in Genesis and the other of Aaron in Exodus. It was foretold by Yahweh's word to many of the prophets, Hosea 6:6, Isaiah 1, and Jeremiah 31, that the Aaronic line would become a remnant without power, and hence the return to the righteous king, whom we know to be Yeshua. Jewish customs, religious halakha, and tradition needed a renovation, but never against Moshe, because Moshe wrote of these matters. Yeshua stated that the Pharisees make void Torah by their traditions. It remains that rabbinical authorities evoke the name of Moshe as an endorsement of their tradition, even when their tradition is contrary to Torah. They also misunderstood, as John 2 indicates, that Yeshua referred to his own body being destroyed, not the temple. Verse 15, and all those who were sitting in the assembly stared at him, and they saw his face as the face of a messenger. Acts chapter 7. And the high priest asked him if these things were so. And he said, men, our brothers and our fathers, listen. The Elohim of glory appeared to our father Avraham when he was in Beth Narain, before he came to dwell in Haran. Footnote 66, the land of the two rivers Tigris and Euphrates, in Greek, Mesopotamia. Verse 3, and he said to him, depart from your land and from among the sons of your nationality, and come into the land that which I will show you. Footnote 67, idiom for kinsmen, and footnote 68 is Genesis 12:1. And had said Yahweh to Abram, get out of your country and from your family and from the house of your father to a land that I will show you. Verse 4, and then Avraham departed from the land of the Chaldeans and came and dwelt in Haran. And after his father had died, Elohim moved him from there to this land in which you dwell today. And he did not give him an inheritance in it, not even a footstep. Yet he promised that he would give it to him as an heirloom to him and to his seed while he had no son. Footnote 69, Deuteronomy 2:5, Deuteronomy chapter 2, starting at verse 4. And the people command, saying, you are about to pass through the territory of your brothers, the descendants of Esau who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. Therefore watch yourselves carefully, not do meddle with them, for not I will give any you of their land, no, not so much as a footprint, branch, one footstep, because as a possession to Esau I have given Mount Seir. Footnote 7 is Genesis 12:7, 13:15, 15:4, 7, 18 through 21, 17:8, 24:7, and 48:4. Let's just look at 12, verse 7. and appeared to Yahweh Abraham and said, to your descendants I will give land this. And he built there an altar to Yahweh who had appeared to him. Verse 6, and Elohim spoke with him, saying that to him that your seed will be a sojourner in a foreign land, and he will subject to it for 400 years, and they will treat them wickedly. And the people whom they will serve in bondage, I will judge them, Elohim said. And after these things they will depart and serve me in this land. Footnote 71, Genesis 15, 13, 14, and 16. And he said to Abram, surely know that strangers will be your descendants in a land that is not theirs, and serve will them, and they will afflict them 400 years. But the nation whom they serve will judge I, and afterward they shall come out with possessions great. And as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at an old age. Good. But in the generation forth they shall return here, for not is complete the iniquity of the Amorites yet here. Verse 8, and he gave the covenant of circumcision to him. And then he fathered Yitzchak and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Yitzchak fathered Yaakov, and Yaakov fathered our 12 fathers. And our fathers were jealous of Yosef and sold him in Mitzrayim, but Elohim was with him. Footnote 72, Egypt. And footnote 73 is Genesis 37, 11 and 28, and 39, 1 through 3, 21 and 23. Genesis 37, verse 11, and envied him his brothers, but his father kept the matter in mind. Verse 28, and passed by men Midianites, traders, so they pulled up and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Verse 10, and he delivered him from all his oppression, and he gave grace and wisdom to him before Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, that's Egypt, and appointed him ruler over all Mitzrayim and his house. Footnote 74 is Genesis 41, 37 through 44. So was good the advice in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And said Pharaoh to his servants, can we find such as this a man whom the spirit of Elohim is in? And said Pharaoh to Joseph, since has shown Elohim you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and according to your word shall be ruled all my people. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And said Pharaoh to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And took Pharaoh his signet ring off his hand and put it on hand of Joseph. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a chain gold around his neck. And he had ride him in chariot the second which he had. And they cried out before him, bow the knee. So he set him over all the land of Egypt. And said Pharaoh to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and apart from you, not may lift man his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Verse 11, and there was a famine and great affliction in all Mitzrayim and in the land of Canaan, and our fathers had nothing to sustain them. Footnote 75 is Genesis 41:54 and 42:5. And began 7 years of the famine to come, as had said Joseph. And was the famine in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. Genesis 42, verse 5. And went the sons of Israel to buy grain among those who journeyed, for was the famine in the land of Canaan. Verse 12. And after Yaakov heard that there was sustenance in Mitzrayim, he sent our brothers first. And when they went the second time, Joseph made himself known to his brothers, and the nationality of Joseph was made known to Pharaoh. Footnote 76 is Genesis 45:1. And not could Joseph restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he cried out, Make go out every man from me. So no stood man with him, while he made himself known, Joseph to his brothers. Verse 14. And Joseph sent for his father and brought Yaakov and all his family, and they were 75 souls in number. And Yaakov went down to Mitzrayim and died there, he and our fathers. And he was moved to Shechem and was placed in the tomb that Abraham had purchased with money from the sons of Hamor. And when the time arrived for the things that Elohim had promised by oaths to Abraham, the people increased and grew strong in Mitzrayim, until another king rose up over Mitzrayim who did not know Yosef. Footnote 77 is Exodus 1, 7 and 8. But the sons of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and grew exceedingly greatly, and was filled the land with them. And there arose a king new over Egypt, who not did know Joseph. Verse 19, and he plotted against our kindred and dealt wickedly with our fathers, and commanded that their infant males be cast out, so that they might not live. In that same time Moshe was born, and he was pleasing to Elohim, and he was reared 3 months in his father's house.
In this same New Bedford, there stands a whaleman's chapel, and few are the fishermen shortly bound for the Indian Ocean or Pacific who fail to visit there.
God had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah. Shipmates, the sin of Jonah was in his disobedience of the command of God. He found it a hard command. And it was, shipmates, for all the things that God would have us do were hard. If we would obey God, we must disobey ourselves. But Jonah still further flouts at God by seeking to flee from him. Jonah thinks that a ship made by men will carry him into countries where God does not reign. He prowls among the shipping like a vile burglar hastening to cross the seas. And as he comes aboard, the sailors mark him. The ship puts out. But soon the sea rebels. It will not bear the wicked burden. A dreadful storm comes up. The ship is like to break. The boatswain calls all hands to lighten her. Boxes, bales, and jars are clattering overboard. The wind is shrieking. The men are yelling. I fear the Lord, cries Jonah, the God of heaven who hath made the sea and the dry land. Again, the sailors mark him. And wretched Jonah cries out to him to cast him overboard, for he knew that for his sake this great tempest was upon them. Now behold Jonah, taken up as an anchor and dropped into the sea, into the dreadful jaws awaiting him. And the great whale shoots to all his ivory teeth like so many white bolts upon his prison. And Jonah cries unto the Lord out of the fish's belly. But observe his prayer, shipmates. He doesn't weep and wail. He feels his punishment is just. He leaves deliverance to God. And even out of the belly of hell, grounded upon the ocean's utmost bones, God heard him when he cried. And God spake unto the whale, and from the shuddering cold and blackness of the deep, the whale breached into the sun and vomited out Jonah upon the dry land. And Jonah, bruised and beaten, his ears like two seashells, still multitudinously murmuring of the ocean. Jonah did the Almighty's bidding. And what was that, shipmates? To preach the truth in the face of falsehood. Now, shipmates, woe to him who seeks to pour oil on the troubled waters when God has brewed him into a gale. Yea, woe to him who, as the pilot Paul has it, while preaching to others, is himself a castaway. What delight is to him who against the proud gods and commodores of this earth stands forth his own inexorable self, who destroys all sin, though he pluck it out from under the robes of senators and judges. And eternal delight shall be his, who coming to lay him down can say, O Father, mortal or immortal, here I die. I have striven to be thine, more than to be this world's or mine own. Yet this is nothing. I leave eternity to thee. For what is man, that he should live out the lifetime of his God?
For more information about these videos, look at the video description and click more. You can then have links to my YouTube channel and the YouTube playlist, which has all the Aramaic English New Testament videos, Bible Hub links, and Odiote. So this is useful because you can click a chapter and go word by word through the scriptures and get details about each word and where they are used throughout the Bible.